Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Welcome back, you ungovernable fucks. Back again for more. And today I have a confab with Will Jager from The Rage. Most of you will already know The Rage. You're already going to be reading their articles. But for anyone who hasn't already, definitely go through the show notes, click through. We've got links in there. It's well worth a read. They've been covering the Samourai case and many of the other crazy goings on with this whole attack on privacy, whether that be from some type of mixers, coin joins, encryption. They've been covering it all. And if you fancy tuning out of all the stupid op return arguments and listening to something that really matters, Will really lays things out in such a clear and concise way. Things have changed a little bit since we recorded this. There's lots of rumblings going on that things might finally be going our way, but I won't hold my breath. I did record this about 3 weeks ago. We had a bit of a backlog with other episodes coming out, but all of this information is still very much relevant. Before we jump in, I just want to go through the boosts from the last Confab episode with Barn Miner. John with 21,420 sats. Why wind me up? What purpose could that serve? You two could be spending your time and energy on far more productive pursuits. Snibble, snibble. Late Stage Hoddle, 10,000 sats. This episode made me realise I hadn't had any spicy beef jerky in a while. Get to work, Barn. Oh, and thanks for fixing my bit axe. Be sure not to tell John all the efforts. He won't understand the decentralised hash that his single ASIC brings to the network. Rod Palmer from the Bugle News with 10,000 sats, spicy beef jerky and 40 hours per week. Chet with 5,021 sats, pre-listen boost. Barn Miner, aka Fiat Faggins, is such a fag. LMFAO. I can't disagree with you, mate. I really can't. Bubba with 2,000 sats. How can a goat show up without a piss bottle? I guess trucking is completely out of the equation, or out of the question. Yeah, I don't think he shouldn't be driving anyway. FOMO Chronic with 1,001 sats, no message. Reven Stokes, more of boiling eggs with S19 heat, less of shit axe. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, mate. Pies with 100 sats. Beers. Gene Everett. I've sent out 56 lightning payments the last 2 days and all worked perfectly. I think it's you, bro. Yeah, well, that's probably fair with both of us. And then another 101 sats. You guys have ensured I reduce your value received by 99% because you shit in shit on Lightning. You don't shit. Because you shit in Lightning, not calling out problems but telling us it's garbage. So I won't risk sending you a higher percentage boost. Ask clowns with a little clown emoji. And then another 101 sats. So you guys trash Lightning for an hour, but expect payment through it, eh? Here's 101 sats instead of 100,000, or instead of 10,000 for crapping on it. Legit making it sound like a scam. I'm sorry, Gene. It's obviously upset you. But Lightning is quite shit a lot of the time. If you want like a breakdown of why and what's going on and what the problems are, then maybe listen to the episodes that I do with Q, because we go into that quite often. But yeah, appreciate your 101 sats. Appreciate your message. Wartime with 333 sats, beers, and like a little TNT thing. And then another 333 sats. I stopped listening halfway through. Too much bitching and complaining about Lightning. We've upset some people here, Barn. Noster Gang with 100 sats. British Wigger. Also thanks to Cass Peeland, streaming 1,692 sats, Pleb to Polymath, 975 sats, and Garhead6021, 585 sats. Thank you everyone to streaming and boosting. We really do appreciate it, and it helps keep this show going. I also want to say a big thank you to Black Coffee, who's been holding my hand through some technical issues, been very helpful. And to say thank you, I want to do a little ad read for sx6.store. They make seed plates, very affordable, very high quality. There's really only 3 ways you can back up your seed phrase onto metal. You can go and you can get some washers and a nut and bolt, and that works pretty well. You can go and spend $100 or more on some of these wanky posh types with little cutout things or some sort of gimmicky stuff and overpay for them. Or you can go to sx6.store and you can get the highest quality plates I've seen for either £17.49 or £24.49 for the new larger plate size. The large plate size is about the size of a postcard, and the other one, I haven't got the dimensions, but it's about 30% smaller than that. That's the ones I've had before. They're incredible value. I don't know what more to say. If you're not backing up your seed phrases onto steel, I think you're a bit of a cunt. You don't lose all your Bitcoin that you've worked hard for. So if that sounds good to you, if you haven't already done it, if you're onboarding new people and they haven't already done it, go and buy them a nice present. $17.49 for the smaller one, $24.49 for the larger one. And if you use the code Ungovernable, you get an extra 10% discount. This is the only ad read he's getting, so please listen, please go and do it. sx6.store. We'll put a link in the show notes. Go and support our good friend Black Coffee. I also want to say a huge thank you to Foundation. Foundation make my favorite hardware in the space. It's fuckwit resistant. Literally anybody can use this and keep their seeds offline. It's simple to use. The UX is amazing. The team's awesome, with the exception of Q&A. It's a bit of a cunt. They have a really good companion app that makes it easy to do labeling. And as I was just saying, you want to have your seeds backed up into steel in an ideal world. With the passport, you can actually do a backup onto a micro SD and have that encrypted. This is amazing to have backups that are easy to hide, easy to store, easy to travel with. So you could travel across a border with them encrypted. You have a separate code that you can have somewhere else. And then you can restore when you get to the other side. So you don't have your coins yanked for any reason. They've got loads of features like this, and it's all simple to do. Q&A has all these different videos on the website to talk you through it. And if you get stuck at any point, I use this thing all the time. You can reach out and ask me. It really is incredible. Check them out at foundation.xyz, and you can use the code Ungovernable. And I think that gives you a 10% discount. And finally, I want to say thank you to Cake Wallet for supporting the show. Cake Wallet is used by around 500,000 users, maybe a little bit more at this point. You can use it for Bitcoin and Monero for swaps, to buy gift cards. You can use Cake Pay. They've got all sorts of incredible features. A lot of my friends and family have started using this, and actually one reached out to me yesterday just saying how good Cake Pay was, and as someone who uses Monero a lot, this has been really helpful for him. So they've got Seth for Privacy on the team, a good friend and Ungovernable Misfit, who's always there making sure that things are private and secure. If you haven't already used this, you can download it onto any operating system and begin using it today. Again, any questions, you can reach out to me. And if they're really technical, you can reach out to Seth. But if you actually use your Bitcoin and Monero and you want a really good software wallet, check them out at cakewallet.com. Right, let's jump into this confab with Will. I think you're going to really enjoy it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. I think that's better.
Okay. I got your audio coming into my headset, and my voice is going into a speaker on my desk. How's that?
Okay. It's we're getting there. This used to be like the joke of this show was audio issues for like years and years. We're starting to get better, but yeah, It's always been an issue.
Well, with writers, it's always it's formatting issues.
Yeah.
Getting hyperlinks to work correctly, getting pictures to show correctly, things like that. So it goes around for everyone.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. I have to say, like, we were pretty excited when we got a message from you guys saying, A, you were listening to our show, and B, you wanted to have a chat with us. And we were pretty excited because in the circles that we run in Bitcoin and like freedom tech world, the rage is very highly respected. So it's a pleasure to speak to you and to have this conversation, really. You guys do some incredible work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I guess we'll start with the introduction. My name is Will Jager. I'm a researcher at The Rage, also an independent journalist. Most of my work deals with technology, privacy, government overreach, the intersections between all three. You can look at my work on Bitcoin Magazine, at The Rage, and I do self-publish on Nostr as well.
From my understanding, you're doing the digging to create these articles and put the pieces together.
Well, I mean, every journalist does their own research, but my job is, it's really in three parts. The first part is exactly what you would expect. They come to me and like, hey, I'm doing a story on XYZ, dig up anything you can on them. Or it could be extremely specific. This court case drops Monday. I need the papers from the trial the minute they're available. Or this person referenced this article or speech, and in this article, I can't find it. Dig it up. So backtracking things. So hunting down specific information, finding documents, government documents, court documents, and doing general background open source intelligence on whatever topic we're currently investigating. That's all part of it. Also tool building. So I write the scripts for web scraping, for specific websites. We have custom RSS feeders that look for certain keywords that we're looking for, making sure we're not missing anything out in the internet sphere as they pile in. I build stuff that helps us just stay organized, tickler files, other files. Latest example, I just built, we can use now Google Documents on our phone. You can do voice to text. It immediately goes up to the cloud. Built a cloud AI agent with Google Cloud. It pulls that, throws it to a local running AI unit on a desktop, synchronizes it, takes out all the ums and the ohs and the, that you get from speaking out loud, cleans that all up, puts it in order, bullet points it. So you have a direct transcription of an interview, a discussion with someone. So you don't have to record it, go back later, do it by hand. It's all right there. It uploads it right back up to the cloud and it's available. So that should be a nice little addition to our toolbox. And then on top of it, the back end, I act as a human bot. So I filter through all the information and all the webways and what's pinging around. And if I find something interesting, I'll throw it to our reporters and say, hey, this looks like it's right up your alley. Or sometimes I grab them and say, hey, I want to write on this. So it does vary every single day. And your podcast actually pinged on my webway. That's how I knew. You mentioned The Rage. You talked about our coverage of the Samourai case, and it pinged up. So that's why I was like, hey, let's reach out.
Oh, very cool. So these tools that you're using, they must make a massive difference to like how much information you can gather and organize. Has AI made a big difference to that, like the amount of content that you can put out?
Not really. We haven't really. I probably could. This last tool that brings in our interviews, this is the first time we've actually really applied AI to any of our tools. Most of our stuff is custom, like Python scripts or using existing like RSS feeders that we I have adapted to do what we want it to do, and our usual Google Dorks and all those kind of things that we use to hunt down information. Having an AI agent do some of the stuff that I do currently would probably be a good idea, but we haven't actually gone that far yet. you need a fairly decent size processor and VRAM to run those kind of units that would handle any volume of information. And to do so, you basically have to do it non-local, which we wouldn't like to do because obviously privacy and we have to protect our sources and things of that nature.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you get into this weird and wonderful world of freedom tech and privacy and anti-surveillance and all this kind of stuff? Like, were you always having an issue with this type of stuff and like from a kid, or was it an interest in tech? How did you find your way here?
Yes, all the above. So it's the intersection of, of being a little shit and, not liking authority and being a nerd. Obviously, I'm a big tech nerd. Looked through all that stuff and just sort of fell into it. Wanted to be able to contribute, and this was one way. Started working in the background, doing other things. Quickly proved myself as a researcher. Showed those skills are extremely valuable, especially in this term, and then got pushed into writing, which really was never my intent, but it is nice to get your voice out there into the public sphere and people talking about it. So I've tentatively done that as well.
I think that's a similar story with a lot of the people who are kind of in and around the Ungovernable Misfits, and the groups that I associate myself with is like dislike for authority and extremely frustrated and angry when you have people trying to control your life or your family's lives, and some of them break through and find some tools to protect themselves and fight back when necessary. And such an interesting group of people to deal with. It's so different to everything that I like in my normie fiat outdoor world. You just don't really meet people like that. It's kind of like nodding along into oblivion and going along with whatever everybody else does. And if I spend too much time in that world away from my people, the people who care about this stuff, I don't know, it kind of gets quite dark. So every time I meet someone who cares about this stuff, it makes me happy. It makes me excited that there is this like fight back.
Well, that is entirely the purpose of journalism, to point out what's going on to the masses and explain, or at least give references to why this is important. I mean, a good example, you have chat control in the EU that comes up like a zombie. We keep killing it and it keeps coming back over and over and over again. You're just listening to, the government's explanation, it sounds extremely reasonable. We just want to put, a little back door on your phone to be able to check. You don't have to do anything. It's non intrusive. You don't have to worry about it. Only people are going to have access is the government. And it's to catch pedophiles and sex offenders. I mean, you don't want to help pedophiles, do you? I mean,
who wouldn't agree?
Exactly. And it sounds extremely reasonable. You need people to get out in the public sphere and point out all aspects of what that involves. That it's not just criminals it's not just the government that would have access to this back door. It gives a straight porthole. You're breaking your encryption. And then there's always a slippery slope. It starts with, oh, well, it's just sex crimes. Well, also, we already have this door. So we're going to also look for money laundering and terrorists. You don't want to help terrorists. We got to stop the terrorists.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And then, if we're going to stop the terrorists, we might as well stop the anti-government people too. And then we're going to, anybody who might be blogging or tweeting against the government. And then you're like, whoa, what? It's a very slippery slope. It always seems very reasonable until you're there.
Yeah. And it's scary how reasonable it seems to people who aren't looking at it with like through a critical lens. The biggest wake up for me, like I was always in and around Bitcoin and doing this stuff, but over the COVID time, like 2020, 2021, 2022, like all of that time, it really opened my eyes to like, oh, okay. You said earlier, the importance of journalism is to show the people the truth. And yeah, in theory, it is that, but it's only really like, I don't know, for me, the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where I've had any trust in any type of media outlets at all, because you have this growth in independent media and people who aren't owned and controlled and bought and paid for. It was shown so strongly and so obviously through that COVID time. It was like blatant lies and thirst for control, like 80-90% of people just nodding along like, yeah. Oh, if people don't have a vaccine, absolutely they shouldn't have any access to hospitals. I mean, they're dirty and disgusting. I mean, it was getting to that kind of level where people were comfortable to have these conversations openly, and the media are controlling this narrative.
It was completely reasonable until it wasn't.
Yeah, which is absolute lunacy, because a couple of years before you'd be like, no way would people, no chance would people do that. But that's kind of the power of the media. Luckily, it seems like less and less people, especially in like the younger generations, have trust in legacy media. They're going to you guys or to podcasts or to more independent stuff because, yeah, the trust has gone there.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the media has been captured by corporate interests. Let's be honest. I mean, was it 3 moneyed interest control the media in the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
They may not be coming in and saying, "Hey, you will not write about XYZ," but maybe that article doesn't get picked by the editor because it might piss off his boss or a certain advertiser that we're beholden to because. This is a cutthroat industry. Got to get the paper out. Got to get the news report at 10 o'clock, whatever it is. So, yeah, there's conflicting interests there. And then you have to, if you want access to the government, you got to toe the line. I mean, you see that recently with the this whole ridiculousness with the Gulf of America thing. AP News didn't go along with it. And so they were banned from the White House. So that directly took away their access to that source of media, and that hurts when you can't have the source, you can't report on it.
It's a tricky one. That's where I see Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as particularly useful for this kind of stuff, is like for the direct funding, because you have to spend a huge amount of time on research and putting into making something a quality product, and then someone's got to pay for that. People have still got to feed their families and pay their bills and survive. Having the ability for people to fund independent media is it's hugely important. We see it with us. Listeners are very generous and support us and help us. And we sort of in the middle where we do have sponsorship, but sponsorship that's very well aligned with what we do and what we care about. But with you guys, I think you are completely, I don't think you have any sponsorships at all, do you?
No, it's 100% donor, covers some of our costs, most of our costs. We are looking at a newsletter that we may have sponsors for, but never, it'll never be a sponsorship on our articles and, that kind of thing. You got to stay independent.
Exactly. With the newsletter and stuff, I mean, there are companies that are aligned with what you care about and what you do. There are companies out there that care about freedom and build products for it. Are these the sort of things where you can look at and you can say, like, for example, with us, when I have the conversation with Foundation or with Cake, it's like, look, I'll talk about your stuff because I use it and it's really good. But if you do anything that I think is dirty or cunty or shouldn't be done, or you're doing something that I really don't agree with, I'm going to say it. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. They know I'll shit on them if necessary. I assume you're going to find people who would take the same agreements with you guys. There are a lot of shit companies out there, but there are good ones too.
Hopefully so. We hadn't been an issue yet because we haven't gone there yet. But yeah, we do get the random emails from, hey, promote our crypto something sponsored. Like I've never
AI
even heard
crypto
of you.
token thing.
Yeah, we get those emails. We get those DMs on Twitter or X or whatever the hell we're calling it now. And yeah, we just trash them.
Yeah, would you like to have our CEO on who's an AI blockchain something? Yeah. Yeah. And so your team, How big is it? I mean, obviously you've got you and Lola. Who else you got?
People come in and out. We're less a solid org structure and more of a terrorist collective where people come in and out.
Okay. I like that.
We stay amorphous. We're trying to add more writers and stuff, but as you mentioned, it's hard.
Mm.
Luckily we didn't get into this for fame and fortune. We do have Morris and all them are doing a fantastic job covering the trials for Tornado
Mhm.
Cash and Samourai. But
Mhm.
obviously those trials got pushed off, so they're kind of in waiting.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're doing a great job as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because Samurai is a case that's very close to my heart, and same with Q&A and all the rest of the Ungovernable Misfits. They were the guys that, when I first came in, held my hand and taught me about privacy, and they're the people I've looked up to the most in the space for a very long time, like unyielding, willing to stand up and fight against everything right to the end, which they've proven with their arrest. Very, very dark. I mean, it's been a year now. They had the best tools. They stood up and said what needed to be said, and watching them go away was one of the biggest injustices I've ever seen. Like, they were very good people creating tools that were very much needed and protecting people's privacy, and to see them be treated the way that they have been has been disgusting. Obviously, you guys have been covering much more of the legal side of it. I haven't really wrapped my head around it too much, because I'm like, although we cover it, I'm kind of like, well, it's the government, it's legal system. Like, fuck knows what's going to happen. Like, what's just and what's right and what's moral, that's not who wins. So you obviously have been covering this a lot. What's your kind of view of the whole thing?
It's a whole case, and obviously maybe people don't know about the Tornado Cash as well, but that very much ties into this. Same charges, same defenses.
Yeah.
It's been going on longer, and unfortunately the charges they're pushing against Tornado Cash are the ones against Samourai, they have a better case, unfortunately. So if the government wins Tornado Cash case, more than likely Samourai is also gonna be found guilty. So Tornado is going to be our canary in the coal mine. The case has gotten very convoluted over the last year because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of changing things. So I guess to back up, Tornado Cash is an Ethereum chain mixer from like 2019. They've been accused of laundering more than 7 billion, including like 450 million from Lazarus, which is the North Korean sponsored hacking group. They did end up on the Treasury's OFAC sanction list in 22. Circle froze all their USDC. GitHub canceled their accounts. It's went full on. And unfortunately, the co-founder, Alexei Persev, he received 5 years for money laundering in Amsterdam, excuse me. So, I mean, the Dutch court ruled that they did not pose any kind of barrier for people with criminal assets to launder them. Just because they said, it's a legitimate tool, it wasn't a legitimate tool that was unintentionally abused. It was a tool developed to perform and conceal needed for money laundering. And unfortunately, that's much the same case that the government is making against Tornado Cash here, Roman, Storm, and also Samourai developers, because they're not really charging them with money laundering. They're charging them with conspiracy, which goes to the whole hub and spoke conspiracy. So really, it applies to any offenses that they involve the transmission of funds that they may have known were derived from a criminal offense or supported unlawful activity. They don't have to actually have done the thing. They just have to have known it was happening, and they enabled it, unfortunately. And so in the Tornado Cash, they have some internal chats that they're using as evidence of that spoke about that they knew that illegal funds were flowing through Tornado Cash. In the Samourai case, they've taken some of their tweets and other things where they promoted like, hey, welcome Russian oligarchs, things of that nature, which you can make the argument is trolling or creative marketing, but out of context in a courtroom, just black and white paper, it's not going to play very well. So it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight all over the place, and then it gets even more confusing. I mean, just Monday. Well, so a month ago, or beginning of the month, actually, the 7th of April, Deputy Attorney General Blanche released a memo, basically reversing a lot of what we've seen out of the DOJ, saying that we are not going to go against mixed search. We're not going to go against exchanges, offline wallets for the acts of their users and not themselves. He completely shut down the NCET, the National Crypto Enforcement Task Force. Everybody said, "Hey, this is going to free Tornado. This is going to free Samourai." Not exactly.
Yeah.
There's gaping loopholes in there, and like I said, it doesn't really apply to what they're accusing. They're accusing them of conspiracy, and that's where the problem lies. Monday, they took a 16-day delay, and people are making a lot of hay out of this because both the prosecution and the defense in the Samourai case agreed to the 16-day delay to the judge to go to see if they can drop the charges. Because obviously after that memo dropped on the 7th, it was within 3 or 4 days, the defense for Samourai reached out and said, "Hey, based on this, we should drop the charges." It's been 3 weeks. The Southern District in New York is basically ignoring it. They could have dropped charges at any time, and they haven't. They completely have buried the defense in discovery. They released 8 terabytes of data that they just dumped on the defense, 25 or 27 devices that they took from William, and 15 of the 44 they took from Kiani. And there's a third batch of discovery that they're still going to release on. So obviously, drown them, delay, distract is one of the prosecution's actually key things of this trial that they're going to use, a tactic. So with them agreeing to a 16-day delay in the pretrial with the defense is not the glaring, "Oh, this is all over," that some of the outlets have been reporting, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that going around, and although I had a little bit of hope, it was also still nah. With all this stuff, I'm they don't want this to go away. To me, at least, it seems like they're trying to set a precedent, particularly with the Samourai case, because of their presence on social media and the fact that they're very vocal about the fact that they believe everybody should have the right to privacy, and some of the ways that they go about saying that, I do worry, because it's, as you said, from an outsider perspective, it's so easy to just look at that and be like, "Oh yeah, they're bad people doing bad things." It's only if you know them and their ways that you'd understand. Most of this is being brash and tongue-in-cheek to some extent, and that really the majority of people who are using these tools are just people who want to protect their privacy, and they're using a tool that makes it very, very easy to track and trace, and it can be potentially very dangerous for people. And so Whirlpool was really the best tool out there, in my opinion, and something that I used all the time and people around us used all the time, because it's pretty dangerous. If you go and pay your plumber, they suddenly see, "Oh, that comes from a UTXO of this amount. Oh, okay, I might come back later." And there was no real simple way, good way of stopping that from happening without Whirlpool.
Right. And remember what the Dutch court ruled, that the tool was developed to perform concealment needed for money laundering. That's basically what they're arguing here, that privacy is not legal if you follow that to the end of the conclusion. You got to see what's at stake here. David Morris did a fantastic piece on The Rage if you want to read it about what actually is at stake here. So the judge in the Tornado Cash has kind of gone back and forth. In an earlier case, they ruled that was a civil case against Uniswap for fraud. And they ruled that, Uniswap doesn't really have control over those coins and the protocol when people are swapping in and out. So, dismiss the case. Now here, same judge in the Tornado Cash case, kind of leaning into the Financial Agency Task Force kind of guidance, making the argument that, well, Roman Storm and the developers had control over the UI. So therefore, they do have some control of access. They could have put in KYC, but they chose not to. Even though all the stuff that's, the mixing and all that is happening with immutable contracts in the background. They've been in prison and Tornado Cash is still running. It's still up and doing just because it's code.
Yeah.
But if they can make that thing, then that destroys Bernstein versus US, which was the seminal case in 96 when the cypherpunks won. It said code is free speech. If they're arguing, well, they did have control over this part versus this part and this and that, it's going to basically null and void that. It'll allow judges to say, well, this speech is allowed and this speech is not. And non-custodial services basically are liable for not KYCing their customers.
Which is extremely dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous. So that's where these cases end up going, depending on how the court things. And that's why this is so important. I mean, obviously, we care about Samourai. We care about Roman Storm. We don't want to see injustice, but the case is bigger than even them. This is going to impact, if it goes forward, it would impact every developer of software everywhere. It'd be liable for anybody using their. The judge even made a comment about WhatsApp. So people use that encryption. If they used it for criminal activities, does that make WhatsApp liable for it?
It's so crazy as well. It's like, where does it end? Everything is a weapon or a problem if used by the wrong person in the wrong way, whether it's a magazine or a car or a ballpoint pen. Everything can be used by someone who has bad intentions.
Right.
Once you start going down that road and saying what's good speech and what's bad speech, and there's like an arbiter of truth, it gets to a really, really dark place very quickly. And like you rightly said, like, this is extremely important case, and it's why it's been quite disheartening to see so little talked about, with the exception of you guys and a few others. And what frustrates me is that most of the rest of the Bitcoin world is LARPing around, fucking around, trying to almost forget that this is happening. I see it as like quite stupid to do that, even if they don't like Samourai or even if they don't care about that case specifically. It's like, this is going to destroy your like industry and like everything that you care about if they get their way. A lot of this potentially goes away. A lot of freedom goes away because win, and like they're just not talking about it. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you're liable, it means you have to KYC every customer that uses your software or unit. So yeah, that's every hardware wallet. That's every software wallet. That's every transfer. And not just crypto. That's across the board for any software.
Yeah. I mean, is it even talked about like in these courtrooms and cases? I really don't understand how it works in that world. But like, is it ever talked about the dangers of funds being tracked and how someone can be attacked because of it, because of the way that Bitcoin works, and you have this open ledger? Is there any understanding of that? Is it ever discussed? And is it discussed why something like Whirlpool is very helpful to normal, good human beings who are doing normal stuff and just like trying not to be attacked and keep some privacy? Is it discussed, or is it just like they don't care at all?
A bit of both. Defense obviously will bring it up. There's, some letters from Congress they use to try to show that, this software is not just for criminal activity. It is also for, privacy and human rights and, how Tornado Cash, you brought up, donating to Ukraine and some other things. You can't do it. And it's part of political speech. If money, the Seminole case and United, where money was speech from the Supreme Court. So if money is speech, shouldn't we be able to have free speech money? Well, that doesn't seem to track well. So those arguments do come out from the defense, but it's not their primary defense. That's more of a supplementary, because that particular case is worried about particulars of what's going on in its case, not the broader implications. It is a part of the defense, but it's not the main point.
It feels like it's been dragging on forever, like a year for the Samurai case, and
Yeah, I mean, they're still in pretrial. They're just now doing discovery.
which is, me and Q talk about this a lot. When you have a problem in front of you where you have multiple outcomes all the time and you're very like there's a lot of uncertainty, that's the most stressful part. Like once you know like this is the outcome of a thing and now I've got to deal with this, that almost is a relief either way that it goes. The longer this stuff goes on for, the more stress and problems it puts everybody under.
And cost.
And cost, yeah.
Unfortunately, lawcraft is a real thing. You can drag something out long enough that you just completely break somebody financially and they can't fight back anymore or just give in because, now they're broke.
Yeah, which is why it's so important to keep funding and keep supporting these guys and doing what we can. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because it's like if normal people fully understood how important this was and what it meant if it doesn't go our way 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, like where does it lead for their children and grandchildren? If they grasped that, most people would want to support this. But it's really difficult to understand. From the outside looking in, you're like, oh yeah, they're just criminals doing criminal things. I know that if I went and spoke to most people in like normie world and just go, yeah, this is the case, they'd be like, yeah, well, they were doing money laundering, that's bad. That's just what people think. So it's very hard to find the funding.
Yeah, it's like our earlier part of our conversation. It's reasonable and sounds completely reasonable until it's not.
Well, everyone who listens to this will continue supporting them, and we appreciate your coverage on everything as well. Is there anything else at the moment that particularly is grabbing your attention? You mentioned about the encryption stuff in Europe.
That's something we've kept a close eye on. I personally have written several times on encryption.
What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's something that just eventually they do ban and backdoor most things in Europe, and then it's a case of just using different tools? Or do you think that there's a chance that actually we can win that one?
Possibly. It's at a stalemate now. The EU seems bound and determined to break encryption. I mean, they are. France just arrested the CEO of Telegram for people kind of like what we were just talking about, people using that service for some illegal things, possibly, and holding him accountable for it just because he provides the service that's being used for it. It keeps getting killed. And then it comes up again, and then it gets getting killed, and then it comes up again. Like I said, it is a zombie that refuses to die. Personally, I thought we had, the cypherpunks had won the encryption wars back in the 1990s, but it's now back and hot and heavy. The governments do not like encryption. They want to be able to see who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and all those kind of things, which is kind of ridiculous because the internet wouldn't even be possible without encryption, HTTPS. And we take it for granted when, people, even normies that connect to their local bank and, and transfer funds or their 401k or whatever else. That's all enabled because of encryption. Otherwise you'd be cleaned out in a second. But somehow people speaking to one another encrypted through Telegram or Signal or WhatsApp or whatever the application is horrible. And that has to go because someone somewhere might use it for illicit purposes. And that's true, but where do you stop? Either everyone is free to discuss and that's a police matter that you deal with in police matters, or you watch everyone all the time. There is really no middle ground.
Yeah, and how does that change behavior? Like the people who really want to do bad things, they're going to find a way around this. They're going to use different tools. There's always a way around everything. And
yeah, the U.S. has had a war on drugs for decades now, since the 80s, and I can walk down the street and see a tent city with people high as all get out. So obviously their whatever laws they put into police, both through intelligence, through enforcement of the borders, through shipping, whatever else. It's not working. All it's done is make everything more difficult for normal people.
Or maybe it is working. It depends what they really want. It depends who's really supplying the drugs and who's profiting and whose back's getting scratched and all that kind of stuff. But for normal people, it's the idea of being watched, everything that you do, every message you send, every picture you save. It's disgusting. Like, it would change people's behaviors. It's proper 1984 stuff, like hiding behind the bookshelf, trying to get a second of privacy to write in a diary. It isn't human. That whole like privacy is the ability to selectively reveal oneself to the world. Well, that's gone. You know, like as soon as you are near a device, it's gone. It's horrible. It's trust the government. You know, they're just there to protect the kids. It's like, well, a lot of the people in governments are fucking disgusting pedos and everything else. It's like, do you really want the pictures of your kids on a cloud which can be accessed by these sick fucks? Certainly not. I don't know. It would be nice to see more people wake up to it, because there seems to be a disconnect with, I say these things to you and we have this discussion and we're on the same page of like, yeah, it's obviously fucking mental. But it doesn't seem that that's the way with the majority of people. Did we lose each other?
I think I lost you.
You got me now? Or?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry. I think that was on my end because I got some kind of notification from my headset.
Oh, no problem. I keep getting a million pinging up constantly about some problem, but I think we're all right.
That's just the government listening in. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Hi, FBI agent. You should be ashamed of yourself.
You want to talk about being on the list. So here's a story for you. The dangers of open source intelligence. I believe it was Chain Analysis or someone had done a bit on, terrorists are using Hamas or some of the terrorists were using crypto for funding, especially Bitcoin and Tether and some other things. And as evidence, they showed some propaganda, some terrorist propaganda where they, had a wallet address and some other stuff on it, and which they had filtered out. You couldn't see it on the thing, but this was their proof. So, of course, for my job, I was asked to find this.
Right.
So here I am, I checked to see if I could remove the filtering that they had put on it. No, they actually did a decent job. So I had to find the original image. So I had to dig through, Telegram and other terrorist funding channels. And propaganda networks before I finally could find it. And then we found the web address. There are other propaganda ones where they were asking for donations, it's on chain, so we can actually track how much. And it was like, they got like $20. I mean, are you seriously making this argument? And that, however much it was, but I still remember having to dig through all those back channels with terrorists and propaganda. And I'm like, I'm on so many lists now if I wasn't before.
You're at the top of the list.
Probably
list.
So. It's going to come up. We have here evidence that you visit terrorist sites.
Hey, well, listen, you're on the A list. You're an A-list terrorist now.
Probably so. Dangers of the job.
The dangers of the job with a lot of this stuff, like I was talking with Seth for Privacy yesterday. We were doing a show on Monero, and we were talking about, do you know Zach XBT does a lot of the chain analysis stuff?
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not thinking right now.
Kind of like tracks when there's been big hacks, then tries to follow criminals and makes this stuff public when there's a large theft or something. Like this one where there was just the other day, there was a huge one, and then it's flowed through EXCH exchange or whatever it is. We were saying like a lot of this investigative journalism, you're either reporting on the government and their cronies and what they're doing to take away freedom, or on the other side, you're reporting against criminals who are actually stealing, not just normal users. Whichever one you choose, you're on some list, and I don't know which one's worse. Like, your privacy and security becomes extremely important, because you're going against people with a lot of power and sway and who are desperate for power and control. And it's a tough situation to be in sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, being a journalist means you have to speak truth to power, hold people accountable. Often these are people that don't want to be accountable. And there's a reason in countries when authoritative take over the government, the first thing they do is take over the media and start arresting journalists. That should tell you right there. So
control the narrative.
Correct.
Well, I'm very happy that there's people like you and Lola and others out there who are putting this information out there. It's really important going through all this information and making it accessible to other people who maybe don't have the time to do the crazy amount of research you're doing. Thank you for what you guys do. We'll keep talking about the articles you put out and the coverage that you have there. And I would just say to anyone who's listening to this, definitely consider going and supporting The Rage. Where can people go to support you guys?
Directly to the site, therage.co. You can read all our articles. There's no paywalls, nothing of that sort. We do have a request that, if you like the content, you want to keep seeing it, make a donation. Don't have to. It's all on the site. There's nothing to stop you. So, but please support if you can. It's not free and cheap to do some of the reporting that we're doing.
No, it certainly isn't. How can people support? Can Lightning, Bitcoin, Monero, is there anything?
No, whatever you have, we'll take. We'll make it work.
You'll make it work. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for reaching out. I'm very glad you did. And as I say, we'll keep covering what you guys are doing. And
yes, please keep reading. It sometimes feels like we're screaming into the void. You don't get a lot of feedback. You put the articles out and you assume people are reading them, but you don't know how much impact you're actually making. So it's nice to hear from people.
Excellent. All right, Will, thanks a lot. And hopefully we'll speak again. Thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that. I love talking to Will. I'm going to have to get him on again. I think some of the things that The Rage are covering are incredibly important. As I said at the beginning, there has been a lot of updates since we recorded this, specifically on the Samourai case, which is the case that's closest to my heart. And we will see how things progress. But it's really important that The Rage is supported financially. If you click in the link in the show notes, you can support them to help keep them going. There are not many independent journalists who actually cover the topics that matter. Please go and read, go and donate, and help them keep covering what matters. Thanks again to everyone who's been boosting, sending XMR chats, sending messages, questions, everything else into the show. I really do appreciate it. Welcome to all the new listeners. We've had quite a few recently. If you are new and you haven't checked out our website, go to ungovernablemisfits.com. We've got articles, news, clothing coming back very soon, sticker packs, all sorts of things on there, and obviously the pod.